We have a lot of exciting things happening with our Project 5593 Cobra. I stopped by the body shop last week. All the door jambs are painted, the underhood is painted, they're starting on the body today. So the car's gonna be back from paint hopefully next week and we start putting it back together. Now, one project we wanted to tackle before the car came back from paint was our transmission. Now this is the original T5 out of the car. It's got 170,000 miles on it. It actually shifts nice, didn't make any noise. But because we're putting a new engine and everything else in the car, we definitely want to freshen this up before we put it back together. Now before we get too far into this, the first thing I'm going to tell you is I am not a transmission rebuilder. There's lots of guys out there that do a great job on these that are professionals. And by all means, if you don't know what you're doing, you're afraid to tackle this, take it to someone like that, get it done properly. I'm going to walk you through the basics as they were taught to me, just show you how everything works and how to basically rebuild your T5. The first thing we're going to do though is pop out this roll pin right here on the shifter. Just need a small punch, line up with the roll pin and then punch it through. Pin out of the way, now grab the punch, push the shaft forward, pop that off. Now you can see there's the spring, the pin we just punched through, and grab this ball as well. Put that stuff aside. Okay, the next step then, we're gonna remove these bolts here, separate the tail shaft from the main body of the transmission. Okay, with all the bolts out, this is silicone together. We're gonna try hitting it with a hammer to see if that'll pop it off. There we go. You will lose fluid, that's why we have the mat down. It's gonna make a little bit of a mess here. Okay, now we're gonna move on to the top plate. Start by taking the safety switch off here. Okay, now you can remove the top plate. In this case, there are grooves in the corner. Make it easier to pop this off. Now, if you're not familiar with the inside of a transmission, we'll give you the basics of how everything works in here. This is your shift rail that connects to your shift fork. So this basically is what connects to the shifter itself. And these are what move you between the different gears. They ride on these right here. So it's going to be fourth gear, third gear, second gear, and then first gear. Then the synchros are all in between them. Okay, now we're going to continue disassembly up in the front by removing our throw-up bearing retainer. This is a part we will be replacing. You can actually see how worn this is. Again, you don't want to hammer this if you're keeping it, but in our case, we're going to get rid of it. All we got to do is take it apart, remove this bearing, and shim. Okay, now you can remove the input shaft. You just have to turn it until you get to the right spot and it'll pop out. Grab the synchro as well. All right, to get this main shaft out, this reverse lever is actually in the way. So what we're gonna do now is pop this C-clip off the back here. Okay, now we're gonna move over here, remove this Torx bolt. Or not. Okay, that's not so bad. So we're having trouble getting this bolt. So I'm gonna go old school here to try to heat it up. See if we can get it out. All right, since that bolt is fighting with us, we're actually going to start going from a different direction here. We're going to take the front piece off here and see if we can't maneuver the main gear set out. We'll start here by removing the snap ring. Okay, now to get this fork off, punch out this pin right here. And now we can pull off this large lower gear. Okay, sort of lift up, pull this bearing race out. Let's see here. I want to see if we can get this out with this still in the way here. Kind of lift it up and out a little bit. There we go. If you look in the bottom of the case here, you can see there is a magnet in the bottom of these transmissions. Take a look at it, see if you got big chunks. A little bit of powder like that is perfectly normal. I mean, this is a higher mileage transmission, so this thing is actually really clean. But again, take a look there. Make sure there's no pieces and stuff sitting down that magnet. You want to remove them before we put it back together. All right, ready to work on the main shaft. Now, this is the point, unfortunately, we're going to lose a lot of the do-it-yourselfers because you will need a press to do this. But a couple things we're going to mention. Basically, these will come off. This you're just going to slide off here. You're going to release the clip. At this point, everything else has to be pressed off pretty much in opposite directions, but I'll show you something different here. Now, in our case, this is a 93 Cobra. 93 Cobra transmissions actually had a roller bearing on the front here. Your standard transmission will have a torsion bearing, which the rebuild kit will include a new one. In our case, again, this is unique to the Cobra. If you're working on your standard T5, this will be different, and again, a replacement is included in the kit. Before we head over to our press, we're going to remove this snap ring right here. So basically the press released this bearing here, so now all this stuff will come off. Okay, so the last time on the press, we actually put the plate between here to separate these two. We have a little more snap ring in here. And the last little piece in here is a little, basically a coil spring. Kind of want to hold it and pull. All right, at this point, we are completely disassembled for what we need to replace and rebuild. Now we're ready to break open our new parts and put it back together. Okay, we're going to begin reassembly now with our new parts. Start with a synchro. In place, and then reinstall that horrible spring we just removed. Okay, with that synchro in place, we're going to install the washer and the retaining spring. Okay, I put his really thin washers on here. Grab your new bearing. Okay, we use one of our larger washers here and a snap ring. Okay, install another thin washer now on the outside of the clip. Grab our new bearing. Okay, ready to go back to our press. First thing to do is put the synchro in here. You're going to seat that, and then basically we're going to press this on. Another one will go on the outside. Okay, we're going to put the snap ring on here. You want to make sure the groove is visible. That way you know you pressed it on far enough. Make sure that is seated in there. All right, we're going to work on the other side now before we go back to the press. Grab these little pieces here, almost like little baby dog bones. You're going to go in here. You got to make sure when this gear goes on, I mean, close enough if you can see this, but there's little detents inside the gear where it has to go. Basically, that's going to line up with those. This part can kind of be frustrating, so you got to get all three of these in and then line them all up too. Let me see if you can slide it down. I got all three of them held in place. Yep. I'll grab the other new synchro. All right, now the sleeve next. We're going to install the bearing and then the gear. Okay, they can press together now. Oop, I'm going to grab this ring that I just dropped. Before we reassemble, I'm just going to try to get some more of the silicone off here so we get a better seal. Install the new clip on this here. Put the gear back in. And grab our new race. Now we're back at the press. We're going to press off the bearing on the input shaft. We're pressing on the new bearing here. One of the easiest way to do this is take one of your old bearings and just cut it apart, and you can use that as a press to push it up into place. Okay, back on the table here. Now we're going to install fifth. Off that old synchro. Install the new one. Gear on, reinstall fork assembly here. Now install the ring for fifth. And now the fork back on, reinstall the pin that we took out earlier. Okay, we're back over here with the cover of the transmission. We're going to place the pads on the shift forks. Those pop right off. New ones just pop right on. And make sure the surface is nice and clean. Now before you put this together for final, you want to definitely make sure you put silicone on, but we're going to show you how it goes together first. What you're going to do is basically these are going to go down in here, then that lines up with that. Start with the bolts in the corners because these have the shoulders on them. They'll get everything aligned for you. And install the rest. Okay, before we put the tail housing on, we're going to swap out this little O-ring here. Okay, we're going to put some more gasket material down here. Before the tail shaft housing goes on, install your speedo gear. A little notch in here for this to go over. Okay, now we're going to install the input shaft and our new throw-out bearing retainer. We're going to go with the original shim. Should get as close. Now put the shaft in. And this wider groove, when we install this, we want going down. And don't forget, before the input shaft goes on, to install the new shim. As you can tell by the silicone, we forgot. Just like the other ones, turn it until it locks into the groove. Okay, now we're going to reassemble the shift block here. You're going to start by taking the ball, put it in the back center hole. Put the spring inside. And we're also going to pop the cap off the shifter before we put this in. Now make sure this is lined up for the roll pin. You can use it punch actually to line it up. Okay, then install our new shifter cup. Once everything's back together, the last thing is this output shaft seal. Carefully hammer this off. Okay, once you get the old one out, it's time to put the new one in. Okay, once it's flush, you're going to reinstall your neutral safety switch and your rebuild's finished. Our original T5 is now rebuilt and ready to go on our 93 Cobra when it gets back from paint and our new engine is finished. Now we did mention end play, we did check ours, it is fine. The shim we had worked out perfectly, but if not, new shims are included with the T5 rebuild kit. Now as far as this process, like I said, it's basic hand tools, but you will need a punch and you will need a press to do the installation properly, so it may not be best for a do-it-yourselfer, but at least you know the process now for rebuilding your transmission. So we're going to put this aside. Hopefully the next couple weeks we'll pick up the car and get back to work on Project 55.